Welcome to this explainer. Today, I want you to step right into my clinic for a virtual consultation. As an audiologist, I'm going to guide you through the absolutely fascinating neuroscience of exactly what is happening inside your brain right now as a brand new hearing device user. We're diving deep into the biology of how you process sound, how your brain literally physically rewires itself when you put those devices in, and what the wild future of auditory rehabilitation actually looks like. Let's get right into it.
So if you've just put your hearing aids in for the very first time, I bet you're asking yourself this exact question. You pop them in, and all of a sudden, you're just completely overwhelmed by everyday, normal noises. Like, why does the hum of the refrigerator suddenly sound like an airplane engine? Why do basic footsteps sound like thunder? Well, I want you to know right off the bat that your reaction is entirely valid. It's not just in your head. Okay, well, actually, scratch that. It is in your head, but it's a completely normal, biologically expected response. Let's look at why that happens.
Section 1. Why sound feels overwhelming. The biology of sensory overload. To understand why the world sounds so incredibly harsh today, we need to look at your auditory system's internal volume knob. The contrast between your brain before and after treatment is really kind of mind-blowing. You see, hearing loss usually creeps up slowly, right? People often wait 7 or more years before getting treatment, and during those quiet years, your brain was basically starved of input. So to compensate, it essentially cranked its internal volume knob all the way up just to catch whatever it could. Your auditory neurons increased their firing rate and became highly excitable. So when we suddenly introduce amplified sound through a brand new hearing aid, those hypersensitive neurons get completely overloaded. It is literally like walking out of a pitch-black cave directly into the bright midday sun. And you know, it's not just about the raw volume. Your auditory system is also suddenly struggling to process something we call sound offsets. This is such an amazing biological mechanism. Basically, sound offsets are these incredibly precise signals generated in a specialized part of your brainstem called the superior para-olivary nucleus, or SPN. These signals exist to mark the exact end of a sound. Think of them like the spaces between written words on a page. Without those spaces, human speech just sounds like a continuous, overwhelming blur of noise. When you have noise damage, these SPN neurons temporarily lose their ability to fire correctly. So, as your audiologist, my biggest piece of advice here is to manage this initial phase with a ton of patience. Start wearing your devices in quieter environments first. Just understand that this sensory overwhelm is a totally normal biological response. And here is the really cool part. Your biology is already fighting for you. Research actually shows that your SN begins an incredible emergency repair process within just 24 hours of auditory overload. It's working to restore those vital offset signals by increasing inhibitory synaptic connections. Because your brain is already hard at work on this fix, you've got to resist the urge to immediately turn the volume all the way down. You have to let the system adapt.
Section 2. Your brain's adaptation timeline. Plotting the biological healing process.
Let's map out exactly how your brain heals over time, based on clinical electrophysiology research supported by the Hearing Health Foundation. We can actually use baseline electrophysiology tests on day 1 to predict your individual long-term hearing outcomes, which is incredible. Then, early stages of brain processing start to change really fast. Right around week 2, your brain improves its basic spatial orientation to sound, which we measure as an increase in the N1 peak of your cortical response. But the later stages of processing, those take much longer. It takes a solid 6 to 12 weeks to hit the P2 peak. Now that P2 peak is absolutely crucial because that is the moment your brain forms an auditory image at an unconscious level. That means you finally unconsciously identify a noise as, say, just a toilet flushing, rather than just being startled by a blast of random noise.
Section 3. The risk of maladaptive plasticity. When adaptation hinders recovery.
Now, while neuroplasticity is generally a great thing, we have to carefully manage it. Because if we aren't careful, your brain can actually build the wrong types of neural connections. We call this maladaptive plasticity. Here's the deal. When your auditory cortex is deprived of sound, your brain absolutely hates wasted real estate. So your visual or cognitive areas might actually swoop in and try to permanently hijack those dormant auditory pathways. In humans, we see this cross-modal plasticity even in mild hearing loss. If your visual system takes over the auditory cortex to help you, say, read lips better, it makes it so much harder to regain true hearing clarity once we finally give you hearing aids or cochlear implants. This is exactly why early intervention is absolutely critical. We have to prevent maladaptive plasticity from permanently hindering your optimal auditory recovery.
So what's the game plan?
Our main goal in rehabilitation is to shift your brain back to effortless, bottom-up sensory processing. That simply means processing raw, incoming sensory sound input effortlessly, directly from the ear. Right now, when you live with hearing loss, your brain relies way too heavily on top-down cognitive modulation. That means you're using intense cognitive effort and contextual clues from your frontal cortex to just constantly guess missing words. And let me tell you, that is exhausting. It completely depletes your cognitive reserve. We want to stop that top-down fatigue, because achieving that effortless bottom-up flow is the absolute key to long-term speech comprehension and language recovery.
Section 4. The future. Brain stimulation. Guiding plasticity for cochlear implant users.
Getting back to bottom-up processing is tough, especially for patients with severe hearing loss or cochlear implants. But cutting-edge science is exploring some truly fascinating ways to fix this. Fascinating research, like a recent scoping review and proposed clinical protocols out of Duke University, points to a future involving non-invasive brain stimulation, or NIBS. Very soon, audiologists may use these specific tools to actively modulate your brain's excitability while you learn to hear again.
So how does this actually work? Well, by safely delivering tiny, low electric fields during structured auditory therapy using techniques like transcranial direct current stimulation, this future technology could selectively strengthen the good auditory pathways. And at the exact same time, it could actively suppress those harmful maladaptive visual and cognitive takeovers we just talked about. This is a real game changer, particularly for cochlear implant outcomes. It could significantly accelerate speech perception, basically forcing the brain to rewire correctly and efficiently, boosting traditional rehabilitation results way beyond what we can achieve today.
Section 5. Your 6-month hearing plan. Setting realistic goals for speech clarity. While we wait for those futuristic therapies to hit the clinic, here is my direct, science-backed prescription for your rehabilitation journey right now. We know it takes your brain's working memory and processing systems a full 6 months to completely rewire. So, step 1, you must commit to wearing your devices consistently for at least 8 hours a day. 8 hours is the magic number to trigger and sustain that lasting neuroplasticity. Step 2, you have to push far past that typical 30-day overwhelm window. As we saw with those N1 and P2 peaks, your brain is nowhere near done healing in just 30 days. Step 3, utilize structured auditory training to actively force beneficial neuroplasticity. And finally, step 4, you wait until that 6-month mark to truly reevaluate your working memory and clarity.
I want you to make a commitment to yourself right here, right now. Wear them every single day. Give your brain the full 6 months it needs to heal. The capacity for neuroplasticity is sitting right there, just waiting to be activated. So the only question left to ask yourself is this: are you ready to push through the noise and finally reclaim your world of sound?